Good to have you with us, Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Well, it's official. The United States has passed the sanctions in both the House and the Senate, and today the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has taken this country into a new era of isolation. It's not just Russia and Iran and North Korea. These sanctions that are going into effect are going to take us into a new direction about foreign relations with every country on the globe. And I hope the American people understand exactly what's going on here. When you and I were growing up, if you're of my age, say the plus 50 crowd, we've always seen Russia to be the military boogeyman, that we were able to justify our military spending, peace through strength, because of the bear across the pond. I get all that, and I have no problem with the military spending today in the United States. Peace through strength is very, very important. But what we've entered now is into a new era of Russia not only being the military boogeyman, but is now the political boogeyman for the United States. You can't tell me that 98 senators actually believe that these sanctions are going to be the end-all, do-all, end-all, and solve-all of our issues with another superpower. I don't believe that for a moment. I believe that most of these senators, especially on the conservative side, because the Democrats, of course, are out to make Russia the boogeyman because of what happened during the election, which still isn't completely proven as to what happened. But we do know that we have been told through our intelligence sources that the voting machines were not affected, the vote count was not affected. Well, yeah, because Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump. So all of that aside, the reason why the Republicans are going along with these sanctions and voted in mass numbers as they did is because they don't want to go home to a commercial. They don't want to go home in the election cycle to a commercial that says that so-and-so voted to reduce sanctions and sided with Vladimir Putin instead of the United States. That's not patriotic. I mean, there's an element of fear here that is completely outrageous. And now Russia has become the political boogeyman in every election cycle. For every seat in the United States Senate, Russia is going to be an issue. It's not going to be just military spending. It's going to be, oh my God, Russia has to be stopped at all levels. And now Russia is in with Iran and North Korea. These sanctions are for those three countries. Germany is opposed to it. France is opposed to it. The entire European Union is against it. Even the NATO countries are against these sanctions. But for some reason, because these senators in the United States Senate want to save their ass from facing a commercial that might be damaging to them, and they sure as hell don't want to be soft on Russia, you know, so they've got to pass these sanctions. In the meantime, we're setting up really, quote, here's an old term for you, a new world order. We are going to lose allies because of this, because these sanctions are very intrusive economically to other countries that deal directly with the energy sector. This is not well thought out. Now, here's the picture you have from the G20. And everybody at the G20 was waiting for Putin and Trump to get together to have some type of relationship. In fact, it was all the media was talking about. The international media was talking about, when is Trump and Putin going to get together? When is this meeting going to, because this is going to tell us where we're going in the world. So Trump has a meeting with Putin, comes out and says wonderful things. Apparently they got along. They even had an hour meeting on the sideline, which the American media had an orgasm over and didn't know what the hell to do with that. And we're just, you know, crapping in their pants. Oh my God, what'd they talk about? It wasn't scheduled. Nobody does this. Lo and behold, Trump comes home and signs a bill for sanctions on Putin and the Russians, to the point where it's so powerful that he can't even get rid of the sanctions without congressional approval. This is taking us into an entirely new level of lack of communication and understanding on a global scale. Now, put yourself in the position of Iran North Korea, and Russia. The United States has basically drawn a line in the sand that you're not living the way we want to live, so this is what we're going to do to you. We're going to economically sanction you. We're going to hurt you economically. So if we go hit North Korea, what do you expect the Russians to do? Line up with the United States? I mean, if you've been paying attention to the news, that's all they've been talking about for the last 48 hours is how military options are on the table and war is imminent. I mean, this is pretty serious shit. These sanctions come at the wrong time. They're not going to bring us any closer together. Russia is not going to back out of Crimea, and they're not going to allow Russian nationals to continue to be butchered in the Ukraine. It isn't going to happen. And for Mike Pence to go over there and talk tough to the NATO allies, saying Russia this, Russia that, I've never heard anybody talk like that. We should be talking to the Iranians and the Russians and the North Koreans face to face about chill, simmer down. What can we do? But if we do that, we'll have lawmakers who are going to be seen as weak on national security. And our political system with Citizens United will take over and we'll start butchering one another politically, and it just isn't going to fly. I just find this utterly amazing. This is not statesmanship. This is not diplomacy. This is not how it's supposed to work. And if you look at history teaches us anything, isolation leads to confrontation. And isolation leads to war. And if we get into it with any of these other superpowers, it's not going to be a skirmish of a few tanks. It's going to be the motherlode. And there's only a few of us who are going to survive, depending on what kind of security you've got. Donald Trump's hands are tied politically. And what's disheartening to me about Trump is that he didn't even push back on these sanctions. He didn't even give a speech. He didn't even say, you know what, I don't want to sign this because I made progress with Putin at the G20. And there are other ways for us to deal with this. But because 98 paranoid senators decided, the only two that voted against it was Bernie Sanders and Rand Paul. They're the only two smart guys in the room who were secure in their own jobs. Bernie knows he's not going to lose in Vermont. Rand Paul knows he's not going to lose in Kentucky. And I really don't think he cares if he does lose because he's a tell like it is kind of guy. I mean, at the end of the day, fear has to leave the room. The paranoia has to leave the room. And diplomacy has to take over. Well, we're beyond that. And this is some scary shit that's going on. That's all I got to say today.